The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and Taiho felt his stomach drop. Through the small window, he could see the massive station called Meridian 7. It was a city floating in space, home to thousands of aliens from dozens of worlds, and somewhere inside, the Vorak were waiting for him. Taiho was not a soldier. He was not a diplomat. He was an accountant, a forensic accountant, to be exact, which meant his job was to find where money went when people tried to hide it. He had spent 15 years staring at spreadsheets, and his eyes showed it. They were tired, hidden behind simple wire-framed glasses. His hair was starting to thin. His shoulders were slightly hunched from years of leaning over desks. He was, by any measure, an ordinary man. Yuna appeared beside him, her tablet clutched to her chest. She was younger than Taiho by 8 years, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was his data analyst, and she was very good at her job. Right now, she looked worried. "You watch the briefing videos?" she asked. Taiho nodded slowly. He had watched them 3 times. The Vorak were a species that looked like wolves learned to walk on 2 legs and grew to 8 feet tall. They had claws that could cut through metal. They had teeth that could crush bone. And they had a ritual, the examination. Every male who entered Vorak territory had to be examined by their pack alpha. It was not a medical exam. It was a dominance ritual. The alpha would use his presence, his pheromones, his sheer predatory power to force submission. Every species that had come to this station had bent their knee. Every single one. "Dokyun says he will try to protect us," Yuna said quietly. Taiho looked across the shuttle bay where Dokyun stood. The man was tall and thick with muscle, a former Marine who had seen combat on 3 different worlds. He was supposed to be their security. Right now, he was checking his weapon for the 5th time, which told Taiho everything he needed to know about how confident he really felt. "He cannot protect us from this," Taiho said simply. "This is politics. This is culture. We either submit or we do not go in." The airlock opened with a hiss, and the smell hit them immediately. It was thick and animal, like walking into a den of predators, which, Taiho supposed, was exactly what they were doing. A Vorak guard stood waiting. He was massive, covered in gray fur, with yellow eyes that tracked every movement. His lips pulled back slightly, showing teeth the size of Taiho's fingers. "Humans," the guard growled. His voice was deep and rough. "You will follow." They followed. The station was enormous inside. The corridors were wide enough for Vorak to walk 3 across, which meant the humans felt very small. Other species moved through the halls, and Taiho noticed how they all kept their eyes down when passing Vorak, how they made themselves smaller, how they submitted without being asked. This was what the Vorak had built, an empire of fear. They were led to a waiting area where a Vorak official processed their documents. Taiho used the time to review his files. The numbers did not lie. Someone on this station had been stealing. Millions of credits had vanished through false cargo manifests and fake tariff exemptions. The Galactic Commerce Council had noticed, and they had sent Taiho to find the truth. The Vorak had agreed to the audit only because the alternative was sanctions that would cripple their economy. They were not happy about it. "The Pack Alpha will see you now," the official announced. "All males must present themselves for examination. This is not optional. This is law." Dokyun stepped forward. "And if we refuse?" The official smiled, showing all of his teeth. "Then you leave, and your audit does not happen. And your council learns that humans are too weak to do business with the Vorak." Taiho closed his tablet and stood up. "We will not refuse." Yuna grabbed his arm. "Taiho, you do not have to do this. We can request a different team, someone more suited for this." Taiho looked at her. He understood what she meant. Someone bigger, someone stronger, someone who would not look so pathetic standing before an alien apex predator. "The numbers are wrong," Taiho said quietly. Someone is stealing. I need to find out who and how. That is my job. Everything else is just noise. They were led deeper into the station, to a place called the Hall of Dominance. The name alone made Taiho's skin crawl. The doors were massive, carved with images of Vorak hunting, fighting, conquering. They opened slowly, revealing a vast chamber. Hundreds of Vorak sat in tiered seating that rose up the walls like a coliseum. They were all watching, all waiting. The air was so thick with their scent that Taiho could taste it on his tongue. And at the center of the hall, on a raised platform, sat the Pack Alpha, Grimjaw. He was the largest Vorak Taiho had ever seen. His fur was black as space, crossed with scars that told stories of violence. His eyes were gold, and they fixed on the humans with the focus of a predator spotting prey. When he stood, his shadow seemed to swallow the room. Humans, Grimjaw spoke, and his voice echoed off every wall. You come to my station. You come to question my people. You come to challenge our ways. He descended from the platform, each step making the floor tremble. But first, you will kneel. Taiho felt his heart beating very fast. His hands were sweating. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run, to hide, to make himself small and hope the predator would lose interest. Instead, he opened his tablet and checked that his files had finished uploading to the backup server. If he was going to die today, at least the audit would continue without him. Grimjaw moved like death itself. Each step was slow and deliberate, designed to let his prey understand what was coming. The Vorak in the audience leaned forward, eager to watch another species bend. Dokyun stepped forward first. He was trying to be brave. He was trying to protect the others. Taiho respected him for that, even though they both knew it would not matter. The Pack Alpha stopped in front of Dokyun and looked down at him. Grimjaw was nearly 3 feet taller than the human soldier. His chest was broad enough that Dokyun could have hidden behind it. His claws clicked against each other softly, a sound like knives being sharpened. Then Grimjaw released his presence. Taiho had read about this in the briefing materials. The Vorak produced pheromones that triggered fear responses in other species. It was not magic, it was biology. Their ancestors had evolved this ability to paralyze prey, and the modern Vorak had turned it into a tool of social control. The effect on Dokyun was immediate. The soldier's face went pale. His breathing became fast and shallow. His hands, which had been steady on 100 battlefields, began to shake. He tried to stand straight. He tried to meet Grimjaw's eyes, but his body would not obey him. His hindbrain, the ancient part that remembered what it meant to be prey, took control. Dokyun's knees hit the floor. His head dropped. His whole body curved inward, making itself small, non-threatening, submissive. A sound came from his throat, something between a whimper and a moan. The Vorak audience rumbled with approval. Grimjaw did not even touch him. He simply looked at the broken soldier for a moment, then moved on. 2 more human males were in the delegation, administrative staff. They submitted even faster than Dokyun, one of them actually falling to all fours and pressing his forehead to the floor. The audience laughed. The sound was like thunder rolling through the hall. Yuna stood frozen at the edge of the chamber. Females were exempt from the examination, but she had to watch. Her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. Then Taiho stepped forward. He walked to the center of the hall with the same pace he used when walking to his desk each morning. Not fast, not slow, just the walk of a man going to do his job. Grimjaw turned to face him. The Pack Alpha's eyes narrowed slightly. This human was small even by human standards. He wore strange glass circles on his face. He carried a flat device in his hands. He looked like something Grimjaw could break with one finger. "You are the leader?" Grimjaw asked. There was amusement in his voice. I am the senior auditor, Tahoe replied. His voice was calm, not brave, just calm. Auditor! Grimjaw tasted the word like it was something unpleasant. A counter of coins? A reader of papers? This is what Earth sends to challenge the Vorak? I am not here to challenge anyone. I am here to examine your financial records and ensure compliance with Galactic Commerce Council regulations. The audience went quiet. No one spoke to the Pack Alpha like this. No one treated the examination like a minor inconvenience. Grimjaw stepped closer. He was so near now that Tahoe could feel the heat radiating from his massive body. The Alpha's lips pulled back, revealing teeth that had torn through armor, through bone, through everything. Then he released his full dominance. The pheromones hit Tahoe like a wave. His nose filled with a scent that was wrong in ways he could not describe. His body tensed. His heart rate spiked. Somewhere deep in his brain, alarm bells were ringing. But Tahoe's conscious mind was somewhere else entirely. He was thinking about Manifest 7 Alpha. The numbers did not add up. Someone had listed 40 cargo containers arriving from the Kepler system, but the tariff payments only covered 32. That was 8 containers unaccounted for. 8 containers that could hold anything. Weapons, drugs, stolen goods. Human, Grimjaw growled. He was getting frustrated. The small creature should be on the ground by now. Every other species collapsed within seconds. You will submit. Tahoe looked up from his tablet. He had been reading the manifest again. I apologize. Were you speaking to me? The hall went absolutely silent. Grimjaw's eyes widened. In 200 years as Pack Alpha, no one had ever responded to his dominance display with a question about whether he was speaking. His confusion lasted only a moment before it transformed into rage. He roared. The sound was so loud that Tahoe's ears rang. The force of it made his hair blow back. The other humans screamed. Several Vorak in the front rows flinched despite themselves. Tahoe sneezed. Sorry, he said, wiping his nose. The air in here is very strong. As I was saying, I need to discuss the discrepancies in your cargo manifests. Specifically, manifests 7 Alpha through 12 Delta. Grimjaw stared at him. The Alpha's mind could not process what was happening. This should not be possible. This weak, small, soft creature should be broken, should be begging, should be offering his throat in submission. Instead, he was talking about paperwork. I have prepared an official audit notice, Tahoe continued. He held up his tablet, showing a document filled with numbers and legal language. I will need you to acknowledge receipt. Behind Tahoe, Yuna's mouth had fallen open. Dokyun, still on his knees, was staring at his colleague like he had grown a second head. Grimjaw took a step back. He did not mean to do it. His body moved on its own, retreating from something it did not understand. In 2 centuries, in thousands of examinations, no creature had ever made him step back. The audience began to murmur. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Tahoe looked at the Pack Alpha with patient, tired eyes. Your silence is noted. I will interpret it as acknowledgement of the audit notice. He made a note on his tablet, then turned and walked back to his delegation without waiting for permission. Grimjaw watched him go. For the first time in his long life, the Pack Alpha did not know what to do. The human quarters were small and plain, designed for species that did not matter. Tonight, they felt like the safest place in the universe. Yuna locked the door behind them, then checked it twice. Her hands were still trembling. She had seen something impossible today, and her mind was struggling to accept it. Dokyun sat in the corner, his head in his hands. He had not spoken since the examination. The shame was eating him alive. He was a soldier. He was supposed to protect his team. Instead, he had collapsed like a frightened child, while the accountant stood firm. Tahoe sat at the small desk, his tablet connected to the room's terminal. He was already working. How? Yuna finally asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Taiho, how did you do that? Taiho looked up. Do what? Do what? She almost laughed. You faced down an apex predator. You ignored his dominance display. You made the pack alpha step back. No one has ever done that. In 200 years, no one from any species has ever done that. Taiho considered her words carefully. I did not ignore it. I felt it. My heart was beating very fast. I was sweating. Part of my brain was telling me to run. Then why did you not? He turned back to his tablet. Because I was thinking about something else. Yuna sat down heavily. She was beginning to understand, though it seemed insane. The audit. You were thinking about the audit. The numbers are wrong, Taiho said simply. Manifest 7 Alpha shows 40 containers. The tariff records show 32. That is 8 missing containers. Someone is lying. I need to find out who. The Pack Alpha was trying to kill you with his mind, and you were thinking about cargo containers? The containers are important. Dokyun finally looked up. His eyes were red. Is something wrong with you? Are you broken somehow? Taiho thought about this question. He had asked himself the same thing many times over the years. Other people seemed to feel things more strongly than he did. They got excited about holidays. They cried at sad movies. They felt fear and let it control them. Taiho felt these things too, but they seemed distant, muffled, like sounds heard through a thick wall. I do not think I am broken, he said slowly. I think I am just focused. Yuna pulled out her own tablet and began searching through medical databases. Human pheromone receptors, she muttered. Stress response, fight or flight. An hour later, she had an answer. It is our biology, she said, reading from a scientific paper. Humans evolved on Earth, which was a very dangerous world. Our ancestors faced predators every day. They should have gone extinct 100 times over. What saved them? Dokyun asked. They learned to think while afraid. Yuna looked at Taiho with new understanding. Most species, when they face a predator, their thinking brain shuts down. Fear takes over completely, but humans develop differently. We can compartmentalize. We can feel fear in one part of our brain while another part keeps working on a task. She showed them a diagram. It is why humans can do dangerous jobs. Firefighters run into burning buildings. Soldiers fight in wars. Surgeons cut open bodies while someone's life hangs in the balance. The fear is there, but it gets put in a box, sealed away, so the job can get done. And Taiho's job is counting money, Dokyun said slowly. Taiho's job is finding the truth in numbers. Yuna shook her head in amazement. When Grimjaw attacked him, his brain did not see a predator. It saw an obstacle between him and his work, so it boxed up the fear and let him keep going. There is something else, Taiho said quietly. He had been reading over her shoulder. The pheromones? Yuna nodded. Human pheromone receptors are weak, very weak compared to other species. The Vorak dominance chemicals work by flooding the brain with terror signals, but humans barely smell them at all. I thought the air was just unpleasant, Taiho said. I did not realize it was supposed to be controlling me. Dokyun laughed bitterly. I smelled it. I felt it. It was like drowning in liquid fear. You are more sensitive than Taiho, Yuna explained. Humans have variation in their receptor density. Some of us feel it more than others. Taiho is probably on the extreme low end. The room fell quiet as they processed this information. Taiho had not done anything heroic. He had not overcome his fear through courage or willpower. He had simply been built in a way that made him resistant to Vorak control. But the Vorak did not know that. What happens now? Dokyun asked. Grimjaw will not let this stand. You humiliated him in front of his people. I did not mean to humiliate anyone, Taiho said. I just need to do my audit. Yuna rubbed her temples. Taiho, you do not understand. In Vorak culture, what happened today was a challenge. You refused to submit. You made the Alpha back down. In their eyes, you claimed dominance over him. That is ridiculous. I am an accountant. You are a threat now. To Grimjaw's power, to his authority, to everything his pack believes about the natural order of things. Yuna met his eyes. He will try to destroy you. Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned back to his tablet. Then I had better work quickly, he said. I have 8 missing cargo containers to find. In the halls of power aboard Meridian 7, Grimjaw paced like a caged animal. His Lieutenant Boro watched nervously from the doorway. "What is this human?" Grimjaw snarled. "What trick did he use?" "Perhaps he is defective," Boro suggested. "Perhaps he cannot feel fear at all." "No, I saw fear in his eyes. I smelled it on his skin. He was afraid." Grimjaw slammed his fist against the wall, leaving a dent in the metal. But he did not submit. He stood there afraid and still refused to bend. This is impossible. And yet it happened. Grimjaw turned to face his lieutenant. Word will spread. Other species will hear. They will begin to wonder if our dominance is as absolute as they believed. Then kill him, Boro said simply. Remove the problem. Grimjaw shook his head slowly. He is protected by the Commerce Council. If he dies, they will investigate. They will find things we do not want found. For the first time, Boro understood. The audit was not just about money. It was about everything they had built, everything they had hidden. And somehow, a small human accountant had become the most dangerous creature on the station. 3 days passed, and Taiho worked. He requested access to cargo records. The Vorak delayed for 12 hours. He documented the delay. He requested access to financial databases. The system crashed mysteriously. He documented the crash. He requested interviews with dock workers. They were suddenly assigned to other duties. He documented every name, every excuse, every obstruction. His tablet filled with notes. His files grew thick with evidence, not just of financial fraud, but of systematic interference with a lawful audit. The Vorak were making a mistake. They thought they were blocking his investigation. They did not understand that obstruction was evidence too. On the 4th day, Grimjaw assigned warriors to follow the human delegation everywhere. They were not subtle about it. 2 massive Vorak walked 3 steps behind Taiho at all times. Their presence meant to intimidate. Taiho treated them like furniture. "Excuse me," he said politely, squeezing past them in a narrow corridor. "I need to access Terminal 7. The warriors growled. Taiho typed in his access codes. The terminal showed him something interesting. The 8 missing containers from Manifest 7 Alpha had been logged into a private warehouse. The warehouse belonged to a company called Grey Fang Trading. Grey Fang Trading was registered to a Vorak named Boro. Boro, Grimjaw's lieutenant. Taiho saved the information and moved on. On the 5th day, there was an accident. A heavy cargo crane swung loose while Taiho was inspecting a loading dock. It missed him by inches, crashing into the wall behind him with enough force to kill 10 men. "How terrible," the dock supervisor said, not sounding sorry at all. "These old cranes are very dangerous." Taiho looked at the destroyed wall, then at the supervisor, then at his tablet. "I will need the maintenance records for this crane," he said calmly. "All of them. Going back 5 years. The supervisor's face twisted with frustration. This human should be running, should be begging to leave the station, should be terrified. Instead, he wanted paperwork. "The records are lost," the supervisor said. "I see." Taiho made a note. "Lost records. That is interesting. I will add it to my report." Word spread through the station. The human accountant could not be scared, could not be threatened, could not be moved. He just kept working, kept documenting, kept digging deeper into secrets that had been buried for decades. Other species began to watch. The ones who had bent their knees to Vorak dominance for years. The ones who had accepted their place at the bottom of the hierarchy. They watched the small human with his tired eyes and his simple glasses, and they began to whisper. If he could resist, maybe they could too. On the 6th day, Grimjaw came to Taiho directly. It was late in the station's night cycle. Taiho was working alone in a records room, surrounded by data tablets and financial reports. He heard the heavy footsteps approaching and knew who it was without looking up. Human. Grimjaw filled the doorway. He had to duck to enter the room. In this small space, he seemed even larger than before, even more dangerous. Taiho finished the line he was reading before responding. Pack Alpha. You are destroying everything. Taiho looked up. I am conducting an audit. You are undermining my authority. My warriors whisper behind my back. Other species look at me with doubt instead of fear. Grimjaw stepped closer, his claws scraping against the floor. You have done more damage in 6 days than any army could do in 6 years. I have done nothing except ask questions and read documents. You stood against me. Grimjaw's voice rose to a roar. You refused to bend. Do you not understand what that means? Our entire society is built on dominance. The strong rule the weak, the alpha commands and all others obey. That is the natural order. That is the law of the universe. Taiho considered these words carefully. No, he said finally. That is one kind of order. It works until it does not. It has worked for 1,000 years. And now you are facing something you cannot dominate. Taiho gestured at his tablet. Numbers, records, evidence. You cannot scare them. You cannot threaten them. They simply are what they are. Grimjaw moved faster than Taiho's eyes could follow. Suddenly the Alpha was right in front of him, one massive hand wrapped around Taiho's throat. Not squeezing, not yet, just holding, showing that he could end this life in an instant. I could kill you right now, Grimjaw whispered. Snap your neck like a dry branch. Taiho's heart was pounding. His body was screaming at him that death was here. Death was touching him. Death was one squeeze away. The fear was real. The fear was overwhelming. But another part of his brain was still working, still calculating. Yes, Taiho said, his voice strained but steady. You could, and then what happens? Then you are dead. And my reports go to the Commerce Council anyway. I uploaded everything an hour ago, automatic transmission. If my vital signs stop, the files release immediately. Taiho met Grimjaw's golden eyes. Kill me, and within 1 day, your station will be embargoed. Your ships will be seized. Your pack will starve. Grimjaw's grip tightened slightly. You are bluffing. I am an accountant. I do not bluff. I prepare. Taiho held up his tablet with his free hand, showing a screen full of data. I found your smuggling operation. The Grey Fang Trading Company, the hidden warehouses, the fake manifests, billions of credits worth of contraband moving through your station while you look the other way. The Alpha's eyes widened. I also found where the money goes, Taiho continued. Private accounts on 3 different worlds, all connected to your inner circle. Boro, the dock supervisors, the customs officials. Everyone takes a piece. Grimjaw released him so suddenly that Taiho stumbled back against the wall. You know what is interesting? Taiho straightened his glasses, which had been knocked crooked. The smuggling operation is actually quite inefficient. You are losing about 30% to corruption and waste. If you operated legally, with proper logistics, you would make more money. Grimjaw stared at him. You are offering me business advice? I am telling you the truth. That is what I do. Taiho picked up his tablet from where it had fallen. You have a choice now. You can kill me, destroy your pack, and watch everything you built collapse. Or you can cooperate with the audit, pay the fines, and reform your operations. My people will never accept reform. They will see it as weakness. Then show them strength. Taeho's voice was quiet but firm. Real strength. Not the strength of fear and violence, the strength to change, the strength to survive. Grimjaw stood motionless for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the room. Taeho sat down heavily in his chair. His hands were shaking now. The fear he had boxed away was finally breaking free, flooding through his body in waves of cold sweat and racing heartbeat. But the files were safe. The evidence was documented. The truth was recorded. He opened his tablet and continued working. There was still more to find. The message from the Galactic Commerce Council arrived on the 7th day. It was addressed to Pack Alpha Grimjaw, with copies sent to every government office on Meridian 7. The language was formal and cold. The meaning was clear. Preliminary investigation confirms significant violations of interstellar commerce regulations. Full cooperation with human audit team required immediately. Failure to comply will result in immediate economic sanctions, asset seizure, and possible military intervention. The station went quiet when the news spread. The Vorak had built their power on fear. Now they faced something that did not feel fear at all, the faceless machinery of galactic bureaucracy. Grimjaw read the message in his private chambers. Boro stood nearby, already planning escape routes. "We should run," Boro said. "Take what we can and disappear into the outer systems. We have contacts, we have resources. We can rebuild somewhere else." Grimjaw did not answer. "Alpha," Boro pressed. "If we stay, we lose everything. They will strip us of power, wealth, status, everything we have fought for. And if we run," Grimjaw's voice was hollow, "we become nothing, homeless wanderers, masterless wolves." He turned to face his lieutenant. "The pack survives on this station. Our families are here. Our history is here. I will not abandon them." "Then what do we do?" Grimjaw was quiet for a long time. Then he stood and walked toward the door. "We do what the humans said. We survive." The Hall of Dominance was full again. Every Vorak who could fit had come to watch. Word had spread that something important was happening, something unprecedented. The human delegation stood at the center of the hall, just as they had 1 week ago. Taeho was in front, his tablet clutched in his hands. Yuna stood beside him. Dokyun was behind them, his hand resting on his weapon, though he doubted it would help if things went wrong. Grimjaw emerged from the shadows. He walked slowly across the hall, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The other Vorak watched with wide eyes. They expected violence. They expected their alpha to tear the human apart and damn the consequences. But Grimjaw did not attack. He stopped in front of Taeho and looked down at the small creature who had broken his world. "I have read your full report," Grimjaw said. His voice was rough, like each word cost him something. "Your recommendations for restructuring our trade operations. Your analysis of our logistical inefficiencies." Taeho nodded slightly. "It was thorough. It was accurate." The admission seemed to pain Grimjaw physically. "If we follow your recommendations, our legitimate trade income would increase by 40% within 5 years. 43%, Taeho corrected. I was being conservative in the summary. A strange sound came from Grimjaw. It took Taeho a moment to realize it was laughter. Bitter, exhausted laughter. "Even now," Grimjaw said, "you correct me. You face the Pack Alpha in his own hall, surrounded by warriors who could kill you in an instant, and you correct my math. The numbers should be accurate." Grimjaw shook his head slowly. Then he did something that made every Vorak in the hall gasp. He lowered his head. Not in attack, in submission. The gesture was unmistakable. For 1,000 years, the Vorak had forced others to bend. Now their alpha was bending himself, to a human, to an accountant. The hall erupted in chaos. Warriors howled in disbelief. Some bared their throats to Taiho instinctively, their entire understanding of hierarchy shattering in an instant. Others roared in anger, demanding that Grimjaw fight, that he die with honor rather than live with shame. Grimjaw raised his head and silenced them with a look. "I am still Alpha," he growled, "and I choose life, for myself, for my pack, for my people." He turned back to Taiho. "What do you need from us?" Taiho blinked. He had not expected this. He had prepared for violence, for more obstruction, for a long and difficult legal battle. He had not prepared for cooperation. "I need you to sign the amended tariff agreement," he said after a moment, "and provide access to all financial records without restriction." "Done. And designate a liaison officer to work with my team during the remainder of the audit." "Boro will do it." Grimjaw glanced at his lieutenant, who looked like he wanted to disappear. "He has much to explain." Taiho pulled up the agreement on his tablet and handed it to Grimjaw. The Alpha's massive claw awkwardly pressed the signature field. The document was official. "The Commerce Council will reduce your penalties if you maintain full cooperation," Taiho said. "I will recommend leniency in my final report." Grimjaw studied the human for a long moment. "Why? We tried to kill you. We threatened you. We obstructed you at every turn." Taiho considered the question. "Because my job is not to punish. My job is to find the truth and fix the problems. You have problems. I can help fix them. That is all." The hall had gone quiet again. The Vorak warriors watched their Alpha sign documents and accept terms from a creature they could crush with one hand. Everything they believed about strength and weakness was crumbling, but maybe something new was being built. The audit took 3 more months to complete. Taiho found everything, every fake manifest, every hidden account, every corrupt official. His reports were hundreds of pages long, filled with numbers and analysis and recommendations. The Vorak paid their fines. They restructured their operations. They fired the worst offenders and promoted those who showed promise. Slowly, painfully, they began to change. Grimjaw remained Alpha. His people needed stability during the transition, and despite everything, he was still the strongest among them. But he was different now. Quieter, more thoughtful. He had learned that there were forms of power that claws could not touch. On the day the human delegation left, Grimjaw came to the docking bay to see them off. "Human," he said to Taiho, "I do not understand you. I do not think I ever will, but I respect you." Taiho nodded politely. "Thank you. Your station's financial reports are much improved. You should be profitable within 2 years if you follow the efficiency recommendations." Grimjaw laughed again. That same bitter, exhausted sound. "Is that all you think about? Money and numbers?" "They tell stories," Taiho said. "Every number has a meaning. Every calculation reveals a truth. If you learn to read them, you can understand anything." "And what do our numbers tell you about us?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. "They tell me you are survivors. You have made hard choices in hard times. Some of those choices were wrong, but you are still here, still fighting, still trying to make something better for your people." He adjusted his glasses. "That is not nothing." Grimjaw had no response to this. He simply stepped back and watched as the humans boarded their shuttle. Yuna settled into her seat beside Taiho. "You know, you could have been killed about 100 times this past week." "Yes." "Does that not bother you?" Taiho pulled out his tablet and began reviewing his notes for the next assignment. "The math checked out in the end. The pack will survive. The station will prosper. The fraud has been stopped." He shrugged. "That is what matters." Dokyeon shook his head from across the aisle. You are the strangest man I have ever met. Probably, Taiho agreed. The shuttle lifted off, carrying them away from Meridian 7. Behind them, the Vorak were already beginning their new chapter. It would not be easy. Change never was. But they had learned an important lesson. Some creatures could not be dominated. Some powers could not be faced with teeth and claws. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in the universe was a tired man with a spreadsheet and a job to do. Across the galaxy, other species heard the story, the tale of the human accountant who made the Pack Alpha submit. It spread through trade routes and diplomatic channels, growing larger with each telling. And wherever the story went, a new warning followed. Do not threaten human accountants. They do not negotiate. They do not bend. They simply do their job, no matter what stands in their way, and their math always checks out in the end.